Welcome to the All Out Coach Podcast. My name is Tim Mikhelishvili. I'm your host, CEO and co-founder of Amadeus Pharma. On the last episode, you heard Bob Beamon, an Olympic legend, gold medalist, best known for his Beamon-esque epic jump of 8 meters, 90 centimeters at the 1968 Mexico City Olympics. Longest standing world record once, and to this day, still an Olympic record. Well, in this episode, you're going to hear part 2 of that conversation, only this time in front of a global audience of scientists, leading executives in pharma, biotech, investors, sports athletes, and beyond. This conversation left many of them talking about it for weeks. He shares a truly candid take on not only how he was able to become an Olympic champion in long jump, but how he was also a champion of his own healthcare, how he took that same approach to managing his own health and also reinventing himself as a musician at the age of 77. So make sure to share this episode with your friends. Subscribe to the All Out Coach podcast, where the motto is stretch yourself, lift others. Enjoy the episode. Now let's shift gears to our second keynote speaker, our honorary guest, an Olympian, Bob Beamon. I will assume here that most of us are not Olympians or have not participated in the Olympics. I may be wrong in that assumption, but I know that some of our expert judges are athletes as well in medical affairs, and they've run very fast times in the sprint, 100 meters, for example, 10:86, okay, which is quite a fast time. You'll have to network with them to know who that is in the Hoover app. But I want to introduce Bob Beamon, our champion, who has reinvented himself many times across his life and career as well. He's also a musician. He happened to have opened the track and field competition this year at the Paris Olympics, if you were able to catch that. I recorded a podcast live with him recently. It's not published yet. And he's just is an incredible man, human being, and I'm fortunate to have him join us here today. I want to pull up a photo first of his jump, the still shot of the jump that everyone is very familiar with, because it still stands today as an Olympic record to this day, and he's going to celebrate a 56th anniversary of this long jump. On October 18th, in fact. So with this picture and with fireworks afterwards, he'll be our honorary guest who'll open the games officially. I want to invite Bob to speak to us.
Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes, there you are. Okay.
Can you see me and hear me?
Yes, we can see you as well. We can see you as well.
Great.
Absolutely.
Great.
Well, welcome. Welcome to our Medical Affairs Innovation Olympics, Bob. It's a huge honor to kind of bring the two worlds together of sports and science, which we've been doing for 3 years now. As I mentioned, I want to start, with a question, and also invite everyone else to post your questions in this chat, just like we've been doing with our previous speakers. I want to ask you about the first jump you made before that famous jump. What was the first jump you made in life that shaped your career afterwards?
Well, Tim, first of all, thank you for this wonderful opportunity to share a just a small tidbit of my background and to share with your colleagues and to let them know how closely related and how important it is to have health and sports connected with each other. And so it was a great thing to connect me with Tim. So thank you very much. So the question was, what was my first? Well, it was sort of a interesting beginning for me because I let me set up the backdrop because I think I think it would be very important to know where I came from. So I'm saying to you, my backdrop in my experience in life, that I came from a place called South Jamaica, Queens, New York. Very little information spread it out in my community about health, how to take care of yourself. And so I started out in an unlucky situation. I lost my mother at the age of almost 1 year old. She passed away at the age of 25. I never knew my father, not until I was 74 years old. So I was already at a handicap in terms of understanding. I was put in a home in New York because they didn't know what to do with me after my mother passed away. So it was sort of interesting. And the backdrop I'm giving you so that you understand a little bit more about the health and so forth. And so my mother passed away with tuberculosis in 1946. 47, they found a cure of tuberculosis. Number two, at the age of 74, I found out who my father was. He also contracted tuberculosis also. So I was at the time at a tremendous handicap. And so from that point on, living with some of the family members, didn't know very much about anything about health or even sports. And so I'm the first one to graduate from high school. And of course, the first to graduate from college too, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm at a tremendous handicap. I'm not feeling good about myself. I don't know anything about sports or anything about health reasons and stuff like this, how to keep yourself healthy. So here I am trying to find my way in life. And I was choosing another side of life, which was not socially acceptable. And so they said, Bob, you have one foot in the grave and one foot out. So how are you going to serve? How are you going to get yourself back together? So one day, there was this information in the community talking about police athletic league activities. And the activities were track and field, basketball, and touch football and things like this here. And so I chose two sports, which was basketball, which was my number one love as an athlete. So number two, track and field was there. And so I started out running 50 meters, 100 meters. I'm like 8 and 9 years old. And so I'm really trying to find something that I could win. I got beat so many times that I was so disappointed. I did not like to lose. I wanted to find a way. I just wanted to get a medal, one of these small medals from the Police Athletic League. Everybody was coming home with medals. And so one day, this youngster, a friend of mine, decided he was very ill. And so they asked me to take his place. And so it was called the long jump. And I said, my God, I can jump in the sand. That's an easy thing to do. And so I got up there that day. I think I was about 10 or so. And my first jump that I jumped was 19 feet. And I won my first medal. Tim, I was so excited about that. And I said, if I can win a medal at 10 years old, just think maybe I have another opportunity to win my second medal, and maybe long jumping is something that I need to concentrate on. So that was how I first started out there, Tim.
Yeah. And you rose to stardom quite early after that as well. Even just considering how young you were when you beat that world record, right? But let's take a step back and maybe discuss what your personal theory of competition was. What was your approach to competition early on?
Well, if you, Tim, if we look at early years, are we looking at it from the time that I started out, which was 9 or 10, and
Yeah.
then as
How
we
did you continue to keep going and competing?
was
Why? Why?
motivation, it was a motivation, Tim, to be to be somebody, to be special. It wasn't about the attention, but it was about improving something, proving to people that I could do something, that I could finish something, because there were a lot of misfortunes in my community, and I wanted to be I want to be a shining star in my community, and so you can call it by luck, but I call it a kind of a guidance from my mother, who passed away. She probably was telling me, "Son, it's going to be okay. Keep on jumping." And so it started out, as I said, 19 feet. And I started to train and then I started to go 20 feet. But then I started to practice every day. Every day I'd go out to a track in the community and just jump and just jump and just jump. I mean, I didn't have any competition at the time, but hey, it was called practice. So I jumped and I jumped and I jumped. I said, man, you know what? Each time I would jump, I felt even better about myself. So what we're talking about here is not only athletic achievement, but also personal and social attainment. And so I had two things going for me, and that was those two things. And so one day there was some information that was in the community talking about the Junior Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'm going to borrow somebody's shoes, track shoes, and I'm going to go to this wonderful place in New York City called Randall's Island. Randall's Island.
I love that stadium.
Absolutely. The Randall's Island is what we describe as the track of champions. And they've had a lot of Olympic athletes prior to my competitions there that have done extraordinarily well. So here's what happened at the Junior Olympics. So I didn't have any money. I had to find my way through jumping over the turnstile and to get to Randall's Island. But I was so motivated to compete at this meet that I said, no matter how I can get there, I'm going to get there. And so the end result of this competition at the Junior Olympics, at 14 years old now, I jumped 24 feet 1 inch. And so
did you have a coach at that time?
I had no coach. I had
no coach even. Wow.
I had no coach. I had no motivational person behind me to say, hey, Bob, da 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 da. You do this, you do that. And so what happened was
that's just incredible. Yeah.
What happened was that the sponsorship was it's now no longer existing, was the New York Mirror, put my jump in the centerfold of the newspaper. And so I took this newspaper because I was not going to the regular schools in New York. I was going to an alternative school, and I took this picture of me jumping 24 feet, and they had the conversation, oh, this might be a great Olympian, a future Olympian. And so I took this newspaper to the school dean and to the principal. And so the principal allowed me to come to this school called Jamaica High School. And he said that if you do well, you will graduate. But if you do bad, you're not gonna make it in here. And so the person that took me to the principal's office was the dean of students, but became my coach. He was the track coach of the high school. He is one of my saving graces that helped me through my personal life and gave me information about other things that are not directly associated with track and field or with basketball or with sports in general. But he gave me some inner spiritual things that helped me to develop as a person. And it was truly a wonderful experience to meet a man of his caliber. And his name was Larry Ellis.
Thanks for recognizing him. Absolutely. We would be remiss if we do not relive, of course, your world record jump and just all the events leading up to it. But one thing that I want to ask is, what part of your performance was due to God-given talent, do you think, versus your training discipline?
It's kind of, you can't have one without the other. You know, it goes together like a horse and carriage. It's a interesting question. I can only say that you can't have one without the other. So,
did you work harder than your other peers, for example? You mentioned you trained all the time and you drove yourself to practice a lot.
I had foundation. I understood certain basic fundamentals of jumping, but I was still in the midst of understanding what my potential was. I was always learning, always open to learn, always open to get to the next stage, always open to find another way to make me feel good about what I was doing in terms of jumping. So it's not only about you having the ability, but you have to have this inner self of making sure that you are healthy mentally and set forth. As we watch the games of today, the Olympic Games of today, they talk about more athletes are using psychologists or psychiatrists, or they're getting mental health. They having problems with this and that. And so basically we didn't have any of that back in the day, but I had that from the inside of me, where my main objective was to make the Olympics in 1968.
Yeah. So now that we're there, it's 1968. You had to go through many different steps. You had to qualify for those Olympics. What do you think was most instrumental in you in making that jump? How did you build that performance? How did you put that performance together in Mexico City?
Well, the additional, as they say, side effects were that I had the opportunity to train with some of the greatest runners of all times. And these guys today, their marks were so incredible back in 68 that they're still running those times today as sprinters and 400-meter guys. So we had such a talented team that many of us could do several events, not just long jumping. I could triple jump. I could do the 100, I could do the 200. So we were
Hmm.
very, very talented to be able to branch off and go into many directions of going. But I had the good fortune to train hard with the fastest guys in the world, and be able to maintain the speeds that they were giving me. So I
Hmm.
was very fortunate to train with great ones.
Yeah, look, growing up, long jump and track and field were my favorite sports. I was so glad that Gary Hall introduced me to you. I told him about my love for the long jump and everything like that. And my daughter's training right now. I have a long jump coach for my daughter. And I remember just measuring my own jumps. I never got even close to any of your distances. Of course, even early on. But what makes the long jump such a difficult event? Where you have to combine the speed that you just talked about, as well as the mechanics of that jump, and basically fly in the air, right? Keep that jump for 6 seconds. Can you tell me what goes into excelling, excellence in the long jump, where the world records it's very difficult to break a world record. You cannot use a performance enhancing substance, for example, and confer that in that particular discipline, unlike in a sprint, for example, and confer an advantage, right?
So Tim, here's something that we mentioned it somewhere in conversation. Uh,
Hmm.
um, my thing is that I had no coach to train me when I was 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 until my sophomore year in high school. So it's more inner spirit. There's the feeling of wanting to progress, if it's not by inch, by 5 inches, 10 inches, whatever. But I was always motivated to, uh, if I lost, I found a way to get up, brush myself off, and start all over again. I was willing to take a loss because I knew somewhere there were end result that I would be very successful. I just had this feeling that I had to continue because I've gotten beaten so much that when I did win, I felt so good. I even became even more motivated. It was
Yeah.
more principle. It was like I'm arriving. I'm arriving. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm even feeling better about myself. I'm
Right.
I'm doing all the
It's
extra things now. Things are becoming more exciting to me.
And you did so by a long distance. I mean, that world record that you broke, during the qualifications, you only qualified on the last jump. You barely really, right, in the qualifications for the final, and then in the final, you ended up breaking the record by a huge distance, right? And it stood for 23 years. How did this being a champion impact your life afterwards, in your business, your career?
Well, here is the called the transitional stage for athletes that have spent all of or most of their entire life training for this big moment to
Hmm.
stand up on that stage to either win a gold medal or silver or bronze or just being a participant of making their Olympic teams. And so sometimes nothing else seems to be important to start preparing for the afterlife. And I can tell you from professional athletes to amateur athletes, transitional from going into retirement has been sadly disappointing in a lot of athletes. They just don't know
Right.
what to do.
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
is very important. And that is one of the things that we should, as coaches or managers, start preparing our athletes the afterlife after, because
after sports, life after sports, right? Yeah.
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely. It is so important. So my transitional was that I was ready. I was ready to make my transition. Uh, I was when I stood up on the podium to receive my medal. The Star Spangled Banner went up, and I stood there for a minute, and I said, "What the hell do I do now?"
Yeah.
I've already, I've already gone beyond my imagination of what I have done. I didn't even know the tremendous effect of what this jump did, not only to me, to my family, to the world. I mean, it was just unbelievable. We had people that were in the medical field were trying to analyze my jump, trying to understand how could this man jump 3 feet be on top of the Olympic record and
Right.
2 feet on the world record. How could that
Mm-hmm.
happen? We only make jumps in inches, a couple of inches in competitions since we started the long jump. And so what happened there was I stood there and I said, well, what the heck do I do now? And so my thing was that I need to have the confidence in trying to find something that would be as exciting or even more exciting. And
Mm-hmm.
so I had to go back to school and graduate from college and so forth. But after graduating from college, one day I got sick and I had to go to the doctor. And the doctor said, your blood pressure is sky high.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, you have a problem with your kidneys. And so you got to be aware of these things. And so my blood pressure was just unbelievably high. It was, as they say, I was a walking time bomb, and
Oh.
I had no idea that it was that bad. And
Mm.
so now I have to now, after all of these years, start worrying about health. Man,
Mm.
I'm Superman. I don't I
Right.
don't
Right.
I don't need doctors to tell me what to do. But they said this is about life and death. And the great thing about my existence was that I used common sense. And I said, hey, what do I need to do, doc? And so my transitional stage started with trying to find something that would be equal as exciting as training for the Olympics, but also understanding what my health was, how to get things. Because in my family, growing up, there was nothing about health. There was nothing at
Mm-hmm.
all. We just went along life. We were there until we were 40 and 50, and then suddenly we're losing people in the family. So my education, I got on my own. I mean, and my transitional was inner. Like, I got to find something. As I said, I stood up on the podium and they put this Olympic gold medal around my neck. At that point, I was aware that I had to make my transition into something, but I wasn't afraid to. I was always seeking and looking and trying to find things that would make it easier for me to get into a transitional stage.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, and the what kind of innovations in healthcare are you particularly excited about now? Given that we have an innovations event here, so I wanted to ask you that question. Is there, are you following any particular, healthcare advances, or what kind of wishes or message would you have to our healthcare community here of scientists and innovators and leaders?
Well, the fortunate thing for me was that my athletic, I guess, experience turned out to be extremely favorable to me both socially and financially. And so the things that came to me one day was that a pharmaceutical company came to me and said, "Man, we understand you have hypertension, and that we would like for you to represent us in promoting our medication." And I agreed to do it, and I spent a lot of time promoting it around the world.
Oh, really? Oh,
Hypertension. And so that became a very exciting experience, not just because I was representing the company, because each time that I stood and talked about my experience with hypertension, I learned more about myself and what I had to do. And I had to stay connected. I didn't vary away from the problem. I kept it with me. And I made sure that I followed what my doctors instructed me to do. And then I developed kidney problems. I developed diabetes. And I'm now faced with another. This is now later stages in my 60s and 70s. And I'm like, man, how do I deal with this? Well, you deal with it like you dealt before.
Like a sports athlete, an intelligent sports athlete.
Absolutely. It's like, let's put two and two together. Hey, when they diagnose you, what are you going to do? Are you going to follow the instructions? Are you going to follow your doctor's prescription, his advice or his findings, or are you going to fall by the wayside? Well, I'm not a loser. I'm going to continue to be a winner. And so the winning part of me is that I always interested in making myself better. And so not only in competition, but also in my field when when the medical parts of me are seeping out and saying, help, you need help. Well, if I need help medically, I'm going to get it. And so I've dealt with my diabetes extremely well. And doctors are very excited about, how I've actually taken care of myself. And in the communities where I grew up, man, there's a lot of sad stories about men and women and children that are faced with these kinds of setbacks.
Yeah. The theme this year in our event is discover new power in medical decisions. Last year, the theme, for example, was reclaim our health, revive our planet. Right. So we're continuing along that theme, and we realize how the patients are becoming more in control of their own decision making, across the spectrum. And so I'm glad to hear that your condition is under control and you continue to receive continuous, you have continuity of care. I know that you have also reinvented yourself as a musician, as a drummer. You have a band. You played with a Grammy Award-winning band. You opened the Paris Olympics. Maybe share some of your impressions from the Paris Olympics. Before I open it up to the audience. So everyone, feel free to ask some questions as well after we hear this response. Either get on video, please feel free, and or in the chat. But yeah, tell me about your impressions from Paris, and especially because you had a musical performance there,
right?
Too, right?
Well,
what role does that play now in your life?
Well, Tim, one of the things that when I make my appearances with people, I talk about there's no limit. You never should stop reinventing yourself, or never think that it's coming to an end because you reach a certain age that things must stop. You must always think about, how do I make myself better, or how do I go into my next transition? So what happened with me was I had to stop my musical drumming experience when I started at 8 and 9 years old. I had to stop when I was 15. So I had committed that time at 15 to sports. And so I had to now concentrate on sports now. So I had to leave that. And so all the years that went by, and so I was always around musicians. So he said, Bob, you need to come back, and you need to come back in. And so 1 year ago, I said, you know what? It's time. I'm ready to make that next transition. And so I had a cousin that is very, very famous as a musician, and I asked him. I said, "You think I should come back now?" And he said, "Absolutely." And I said, "Well, this is the transitional stage that I need to go and to get to where I wanted to get to." And so I had to work out night and day and night, just like I was training for the Olympics. I was hurting. My arms was hurting, everything. My mind was, it was so, I said, am I going to make this thing? So after 3 or 4 months of training, the band leader came to me and said, Bob, I'm going to do an album, and I would like you to be a special guest on my album. And I was so excited. I said, wow, did I come that far? But I wasn't really looking for anything that big in my life. I was looking just to say, I'm going to enjoy the next transition of doing something that I missed when I was a youngster, and now I'm back in it. And so some people were saying, oh, he's not going to do it. But look at me now. I'm like, yo, I'm back in it now, and I'm excited about it. And it keeps going, and it keeps going, and it keeps going. So I just never stop and feel like I can't do something.
Yeah, and that's visualization. That's just such a gift that sports athletes have, and they learn to acquire it too. One thing that I share, I think, with you, and it's not the world record in my talent for long jump, is my approach to sports. I've always gone to work and everything that I do as a sports athlete. And look, when I was very little, and with other children, I used to always pretend like I was a commentator and I was interviewing sports athletes. So I'm truly, truly honored to have the chance to interview you, Bob, today. And so it's a great opportunity, very inspirational for all of us. I want to ask you, my friends, innovation Olympians, to speak and to get to know Bob, and in some of our last few minutes here. Anyone has a question or comment for Bob? Mark, go ahead.
So, Pro Mark or Vic Firth?
Mark, I heard Mark first there. Go ahead.
For the drummer.
Oh, okay.
What type of sticks? Yeah, what type of sticks? What brand of drums do you use?
Well, what I'm doing right now, before I'm a percussionist, and so where I come in at is that I use everything except for the lead trap drummer. I will do as a percussionist, and so I do every other drum except for that one. But if I have to, I will. But I use all of the. It could be maracas, it could be bells, it could be conga drums, it could be bongos, it could be a number of instruments that can make a musical score incredible.
Nice. Yeah.
You sound like you're a musician too, huh?
Yeah. So I've got the patents for the hi-hat, the bass drum pedal, the snare drum from Slingerland Ludwig. So I'm a drum set guy. So I made an assumption that you were talking drum set too.
Well,
I love drums also. I have djembe drums.
I play them too.
Yeah.
I play them, but I haven't sat into a session where they've asked me to play. But I do know Slingerland and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, you guys have some great stuff, man. And I have used those before. Yeah.
Bob, what is the
Well,
name of your
thanks.
band, if you can share with us?
It's
Yeah.
called Stick Bones and the Bone Squad.
Okay, Stick Bones and the Bone Squad.
Yes, yes, and the name of the album that we've developed is called Olympic Soul, and it's not spelled Olympic. It's spelled OLIPK, Olympic. So we have a different kind of way of saying it, because it's soul.
Yeah, yep.
Well, thanks so much for sharing your story. And that I think what I took away from it is if you work hard and you're passionate about something, opportunities will present themselves. So
yeah, and don't
thanks for
let
setting the example.
age don't let age be a go between of whether you continue to do what you want to do or not. I'm always in constant conversation with people who just feel like, oh, I'm too old, it's past. And I said, it's not too late. It's not too late. And
You both spoke.
particularly seniors too, particularly seniors. So
Yeah. Well, but we both spoke about drums, and we have a medical affairs and pharma audience. In medical affairs, particularly, I've compared medical affairs to the drumbeat of science because it's somewhere in the background, right? We're not out there in the front. We're not the vocalists. We're not in the sales. We're not doing the research, but we bring the insights and our complex analytical skills, and we kind of keep that beat going of music that if you listen intently enough, it's in the background. And I think that for me, that's the analogy that I've actually used before with my colleagues. So I think the drum beat is the bass, though. You need it to, and you have to listen. It's a foundation. So it's a great instrument that I also love. Uh, I think we have just time for one last question before I have one request for you, Bob, which is a tradition at this event that we've built. But Noor, do you still have a question?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
go ahead, Noor. Of course. Go.
Well, first at all, super thank you, Bob. You are a champion, very inspiring. I heard you very well. You talked about the fire, the fire inside you. And then you talked about teach the community you are in. How are you teaching this feeling that, you get inside you to make miracles, to get anything accomplished? What are you doing for this community? I imagine it's something has to do with that spiritual state, mental state. So what are you doing there? Like, how are you doing it?
Well, first of all, let me just, I want you to go to Webster's Dictionary. Webster's Dictionary put my name in the dictionary, and it's called Beamon-esque.
Yes.
And it tells you what Beamon-esque means, and it's a great definition of what they call greatness or something beyond your imagination. So the question that you mentioned, and if you could just mention it one more time so everybody would understand what
Yes. The fire inside you
right.
that got you to jump the highest in the world,
Right.
and then got you to become the greatest musician, or make very fast progress, which if you had lifetime, you would have been the greatest musician in the world again. So that fire, how are you teaching it to the community? I would love to teach people about this fire. I think I know what you mean. I may be wrong. I want to learn from what you're doing so I can deliver the message to my friends. I can learn.
Here's the big one. So when I open up, I mean, I could have children, I could have adults or whatever, and I say, my success has really sprang around. How do you feel about yourself? Do you feel good about yourself? And so I noticed that there were a lot of hands that were raised that were saying, well, sometimes I feel good about myself. But what you have to do is first feel good about oneself. And so when you feel good about oneself, things tend to open up inside you, which can help you create. So you're allowing information to come into you and not being distorted or by saying, oh, Johnny doesn't like me because I'm too heavy. That's not the point. Open up. There's a point where if you're opening up mentally, things will develop physically into something positive. That is one of the most key experiences and things that I say in my conversations when I open up. And I tell you, you'll be shocked. So you got to open up those veins. You got to let things come in. No, let's let it come in. Let's let the positive juices come in. So it doesn't come easy. You have to work at it. You have to give it a try. You have to want to seek out, like I said in my conversation. You have to want to go for it. You want to, and so you can't achieve it if you're all tight and you don't feel good about oneself, or you developing something over here and something is not good. And so there's a lot of stuff going on. So you have to be open up. I said, ladies and gentlemen, open up. I'm not going to hurt you. This has nothing to do with medication, unless you want to use conversation as a medication. I say that's all well and good. So I'm just saying, open up.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, Bob. So the tradition we have at this event is that an Olympic gold medalist, usually declares the games open. So I want to pass the baton to you to formally open the games, and I'll put the fireworks on, and then we'll get on with our live debate.
Well,
please, Bob.
Let us just open it up, just like I say, you got to open up your heart. You got to open it up because there's a lot of things to digest. And so I would say it's open, Tim. It's open.
All right.
And let's rock and
roll. Let's clap, everyone. All right. Thank you very much, Bob. You're invited. You're welcome to stay today for the entire opening ceremony and come back as well the closing ceremony anytime you like throughout the next 16 days and after as well. Thank you, Bob, very much.
Thank you. And thank you guys out there for listening. Thank you.